Hey there, and welcome back to a casted game from the Agoge Tournament hosted by Hermes Prime. So this is one of the first matches in the Gold Division, and I thought I'd cast it so you can all check it out, and then you can go over to Hermes' channel, follow him on Twitch, and tell him that I sent you, and say hi, and potentially join in one of the next tournaments. So in this one, we have CS the Lord in the blue as the Chinese on the south side of Hill and Dale, and on the north or the west side, we have Dar Knight in the green as the Ayyubids. So it's really nice to see a map like this, which we don't get to see on the ladder at the moment, and you never know when the map pool is refreshed after this season. Hopefully we might see this one back, because I think it's a really fun one. So let's take a look at the scouting and we can see what both of these players are doing. So both players can afford to be a little bit more aggressive with their scouting path on this one. So you can see here that CS the Lord has gone for those central sheep, and then he's going back to gather all of his around the side of his hill and back over to the other one. So I think this is a pretty standard and a pretty smart scouting path. If we go over to Dar Knight, we can check out his. So he is actually... There we go, managing my hotkeys as well as I do when I play. He's actually doing quite a strange scouting path, I would say. So normally you'd go in the centre because you always want to contest those central sheep, because on nearly every map there's maybe 2 or 3 in the very centre. But he's going around the outside, I think, hoping to scoop up those that CS the Lord doesn't go for. So yeah, going out the side here I think is a little strange, because obviously for CS the Lord to get all the way over there and steal them is actually much longer. You'd expect just to meet in the middle and then cut off to one side. But it seems like he's doing okay at the moment. You know, he's got 5, and if we check out where CS is, we can see where's his scout. Come on, boy. So 5 as well. So interesting that they're both equal. So a lot of the time as well on this map, the sheep tend to spawn right along the cliffs, so you sometimes see them in really odd positions. So okay, we've got one little one round the base there, but it looks like, see, here we go. So Dar Knight's missed a couple over here as well. So they do spawn in some interesting spots on this particular map, a couple around the outside of your hill, and then usually they can be round the edges of there and in weird spots like right in the corner there. So, if we take a look at the matchup then, we have the Ayyubids and we have the Chinese. So Ayyubids, at the moment, I would say the meta is definitely to go for the fast castle, and on Hill and Dale, having this deer pack actually will make that probably even more viable, because even if he runs out of sheep, he's going to be able to just jump straight on this, and he's going to have a really secure food source. So I'm imagining we're going to be seeing the reinforcement swing to get the camel out to do a little bit of a pokey poke, because the Chinese, while they are an economic boom house, they do take a little bit longer to set up. So whether they're going to be going for that boom play or going a bit more aggressive, because they could look at potentially maybe towering this gold in Dark Age, which we would see by now, or maybe even a feudal tower, because one tower up here could prevent the deer and could prevent that gold, so it could be a really nice little spot. But if we take a look over, we've got 4 on gold, so it looks like we're probably going to be seeing the Song dynasty coming up, so potentially a slow age up with the Imperial Academy, potentially, and then the Barbican coming down after that. So there we go. So we can see that Imperial Academy coming down over here, and as the Chinese, you want to be basically getting all of your production and your eco buildings like your mill all around it, because you get additional taxes and loads of other nice little bonuses. So you want to be basically having this Imperial official as close to that as possible. He's aging up with 4, and I think that's actually pretty smart, because that's going to mean that he can then pump Imperial officials from here, and that's going to give his economy a big boost, because obviously he's generating all of the tax from this mill, which he wants to be microing. There we go, picking it up when you've got 40. So if we take a look here, we're going for the growth wing. Okay, so not exactly what you normally see. So all of your orchards get an additional 50 food, and you get 3 villagers, whereas most of the time you see this in castle, because you get 8 villagers and your orchards get even more food. So that means that these berries at the back are going to be nice and secure and super safe. So not sure personally about going for that one, when actually just getting one camel and poking the gold could actually do some really big damage. But I guess he's probably thinking about that Barbican and wanting to get that eco bonus. So if we see these villagers are going to be coming out in 30 seconds, and that's going to be a massive spike at this early point. And it looks like we're going to be seeing a fast castle because we've got 5 on gold and we've got 10 on food, and we can see those resources stacking up. So the Imperial Academy is already up, and we're going for the Song Dynasty with a very safe defensive Barbican. So this is a pretty good idea. I think this position is maybe a little bit far out, so it's obviously quite aggressive. If, for example, it was a little bit further back, potentially here, then actually you would basically still defend the gold, you'd also defend a bit of your front, you'd close off the front of your base, and then you could just have one short wall here and maybe one across there, and you would pull it back. Whereas this one, actually, if we see the range when it's up, you could probably scoot units around the side if you really so wished. But we can see some defensive walls coming up from Dark Knight here, so I think just in case of that early aggression, he's all the sheep just about making it through. I've seen a couple of people get sheep caught like that and managing to catch them with the villagers, so that's that's always fun. So now the Barbican coming up, the Song Dynasty going up, and we can see them on stone, so this is the classic 2TC. So it's really going for that booming playstyle. So against the fast castle, which actually has clicked up, and the resources tell me that must be the culture wing. So we've seen the advancements, which is a 20% less time and 400 less. So now he's going to be getting to castle even faster. Obviously, you'd usually see this with the growth wing, but he's already got that one. And this one, in this timing, he's going to be able to hoover up relics and get those armored units out. And at this stage, this is something that the Chinese actually do find very difficult to deal with. So he's building these defensive walls around all sides of his hill to protect himself, which I think is actually a really smart move, just in case some Kelter raids decide to come over, and we can see the front's almost completely closed off. So I'm going to be expecting that we would see some production coming down very shortly, because we've got 45 seconds. So I imagine we'll probably be seeing either a barracks to get some Gulams running across, or maybe a stables to get some of those camel lancers. If we take a look over at CS the Lord, he's going for massive eco, so it looks like he is going to be soon to get his TC. No additional Imperial officials, so we can see he's got one here, and if we go on his vision, I can use my little hotkey. So we've just got one Imperial official, so this is definitely something I would say he wants to be doing. The Imperial Academy can actually print them, and they use food and gold, which isn't going to slow down your TC. So really you'd want to be popping those out to the maximum capacity, and then you'd want to get one Imperial official, putting it on this stone. You get that 20% extra bonus, which means you can get your town centres even faster. So now he's got the resources for that, just as Dark Knight hits castle. So he's also going for a very aggressive TC out on the deer. Wow, okay. So when you see them going for castle, I'm not sure that's the play, but we're still gathering. So are we going for 3 TC? Wow, okay. So that's very bold. Obviously, that your economy will go absolutely nuts, but yeah, I think maybe 3 TC could be a little bit aggressive if we see the Gulams running across. So we're going to be seeing those coming in very shortly, and another barrack, so it's just going to be a flood of Gulam coming this way, I would imagine, shortly. But looking at these resources, they're starting to stack up now, so he might have something else in mind. But there we go, we see the Gulams coming into queue. So I'd love to see from Dark Knight a mosque coming down, so we want get one of those, get some dervishes out and start hoovering up those relics for all that gold. And that means then when this front gold is exhausted, there's only 3,000 left, which doesn't actually end up being a lot when you're printing Gulams, then you don't all have to immediately go out to these exposed ones, and your economy will be really good. So this here, we can see those short walls I was talking about earlier. If the Barbican was here, obviously, then that would also defend this position. So now the Barbican, although it is super defensive, it is now exposed, so that could get taken down without much to do. Also want to be putting in those doors, because otherwise these villagers are going to get trapped here and they're not going to be able to get back through, unfortunately. We can see the TC's down on the deer over here, so the food eco is going to start popping off, and we can see actually still going for stone and got enough for another TC now. So I'm not sure what the play is there, whether there's a reason we're seeing so much stone at this early stage, but I think potentially this could be a little bit greedy once the Gulams start running across. So we can see Dark Knight is starting to mass those up, and just look at these guys. I love the, I was going to say the outfits, the design. Look at the just the detail that's in here. Although I do also think it's hilarious that the deer is actually bigger than a Gulam, so these tiny little ninjas are going to be running over and doing some damage over there. And also looking at the UI here, you can see that they already have all of the siege engineering available because Ayyubids get that automatically as one of their bonuses. So this is something that's always really dangerous when you go up against the Ayyubids. And as the Abbasid, we can see here very quickly that the Sultan's Munluk is Mamluks is coming in, which they get extra damage and movement speed for 10 seconds on infantry. But this is something really dangerous because they can build siege in the field, so all they need to do, they can run out and get that. They don't need a barracks to do that or anything like that. But there is a barracks because we can see those military techs coming in, and Iron Undermesh is going to be great. Got to be really careful against the Chinese landmarks and the Chinese TC because of those gunpowder shots, because they're going to do a huge amount of damage if you're not careful. So we can see here that the scout is taking a huge shot there, and I think he's going to be he's not going to be making it home, I don't think, for dinner. So there we go. He is gone. And this, I think, is potentially the problem now without having that gate. There we go. So we got the gate coming up, and we can see the Gulams running around the side down to the back. So I'm not sure if Dark Knight has seen this TC. If we switch over to his view, we can see whether he knows about it. So we can't see it at the moment, so otherwise he could be hitting that to be really slowing down that food eco for CS the Lord. So we actually have seen 3 TC come down. So we've got another one on the back next to this back deer, and we can see some Chuganu, but this is dangerous. So the Chuganu are amazing, especially if you can get a mass of them, and supervising them, you can pump them out super quickly. So we can also see, if we switch over, there we go, he doesn't have crossbows available. It's because Dark Knight's in Castle Age. So the Chuganu are really good, except against armoured units, because the way their shots work is they get 3 shots of 4 damage, but each shot takes armour into account. So if you look at these Gulam, they have 5 ranged armour, which means they're going to only take 1 per shot. So actually they do really minimal damage. So if you think there's 195 health, they do, let's say, 3 let's double check, it's 3 bursts, exactly, so they'll take 3 per shot. So anyone who can do maths quicker than I can work out how long it's going to take the Chuganu to take those guys out. And so now they're basically, with all those castle upgrades, are going to be unstoppable at the back of the base. Like, look at them tanking all of this damage from the Chuganus. And even that one there, he's being target fired down by all these Chuganus, and it's just not doing a huge amount. So I think maybe going for the 3rd TC here was just a little bit greedy against this fast castle. You can always outboom, but when the Gulams come knocking, I think you've got to have a response, and that response needs to be crossbows. So we can see them circling around and chasing the Chuganu here, and you can just see those guys absolutely melting, and all of these Gulams are just literally running around under the TC fire, living their best life, getting all the villagers over by the wood line. This is just absolute carnage in the Chinese base now. So the Chuganu splitting up and just being surrounded by those Gulams. And we can see here a ram at the top doing some damage over here, and there's more Gulams at the front going down on the gold under the Barbican. And even with the Barbican shots, they're just doing crazy damage and just tanking. So yeah, I think that Gulam rush there did a huge amount of damage and caught CS the Lord unawares, but a fantastic play there from Dark Knight. And here we are back just before GG was called, when the Gulam entered the base and started doing some real damage. So we're going to bring the interface back up and pause it now just so we don't run out of time, and go to the normal angle so everyone's eyes can be in the correct position. So I thought it'd be interesting now to go and have a look at the final state of play to see exactly how both players approach this, and anything that could have changed the outcome either way. So we spent a lot of time looking at the base of CS the Lord, so let's head over to Dark Knight and we can take a look at his setup. So we can see that he has a couple of farms set up for some safe food. He's exhausted all of those berries that got the buff in the feudal age with that extra 50 per orchard, and we can see 3 barracks here pumping. So if we double check, he has 3 total, so that's all of them just continuously pumping, and up to 20 Gulam, which is a very strong number. We can see he's still working on that gold. There's a couple of mosques out, so no dervishes coming through just yet, but obviously the plan was to grab up all of those relics, so that's definitely something I thought was a good plan. Potentially actually not having one of these barracks and having one of these instead would be good, because really at this stage, if you've got 2 and they're continuously producing, if you've got, let's say, 5 Gulam in queue, those resources are held up and you're not using them. So actually maybe building 2 barracks and then your mosque and then getting some dervishes out would also be a good idea. But Darnite's doing a really good job of spending all of those resources. So obviously his villager number is lower because of the 3 TC from the Chinese with that Song dynasty, which also gives them the buff. I don't think these farms are particularly necessary, especially at this stage, because he's pressuring the base. So he's gone out on the deer over here before building those farms. I'd have gone out to the boar at the top and could have used that wood to wall in, for example, across here to the gold, and you could have secured basically these 2 big golds and the stone and all the stuff in this back corner, including the market, in case you wanted to trade later. Obviously the game wasn't planning to go that long with a Gulam rush, but you know, just it's always nice to think ahead. So we can see loads of villagers running out there to go onto this deer to keep that food pumping. The deer at the front of the base hasn't been taken, so whether he's saving that as a backup resource that could work, but also instead of putting these farms down, you could just collect the food at the front. I like the nice organized houses. I think that's a very aesthetic way of playing, and as a Byzantine main I find that very pleasing to the eye. So yeah, I think the plan was clearly very much get to castle as quickly as possible and print Gulams, and he did that. He also made 1 ram to break down this wall pretty quickly. I think at this stage it probably wasn't necessary actually, because the main damage was done by the Gulam, but having that 1 ram that was taking down buildings while they were focusing on villagers and units was pretty good. If we take a look at CS the Lord's side, then we can see his setup. So we can see his 2nd TC is up here on the deer, which is almost exhausted actually, and then we can see the 3rd TC, which was here with the Barbican at the front. So personally I think 3 TC is pretty greedy, especially when the 3rd TC hadn't even gone down when Darnite had hit castle. That would be my signal to say, armoured units are coming, I need a response. And the Shuganu are amazing, but they are definitely not the correct response, and anyone who has tried taking on armoured units with the Shuganu will know how difficult that can actually be. There's also a couple of barracks come down, potentially to get some palace guards out to try and do some damage, but again, they have mobility, but I think the Gulams with their double hit would actually do really, really well against them, especially with all those castle upgrades. One thing I'd have loved to seen from CS the Lord in this one is more Imperial officials. So he's getting the increased taxes, but if we go to his vision, let's have a little look to see. So we've got at this stage we do have 4, so they did come out eventually. So when he was building the TCs, even if he was going to go for 3, he could have had 1 supervising this, got that 20% much more quickly, and then shifted all of those guys over onto the wood, supervised the wood, because and then so this guy, I'm not sure which one he's supervising, but obviously if you refresh your lumber camps, then you want to make sure that you're supervising that right one, because they both sit there with lots of taxes, like 250. That's a lot of gold, and would actually basically take you to age up. So I think making sure that one of your Imperial officials is running around, unless you have the APM, which most of us, I would say below Conqueror, probably 3, don't have the APM to be individually running around. So I personally would love to see 3 of these supervising, and then one of them running around and just getting taxes, because you'll be able to see that there's a huge amount of resources. Come on, where's the mill? There we go, 200 in the mill, 250 there, 35 there. So there's a lot of resources sitting there waiting, and those guys on gold could have been somewhere else. But I think in this case, actually, in terms of the TC placement, I don't mind the one over here. I would say if you're going to do like a fast 3 TC, you'd normally see the 2nd TC dropped immediately on the stone, even if the position isn't really ideal, because as the Chinese, it doesn't really matter so much. And then you've got that TC going up, and then you're printing units even more quickly. So having a load of villagers run over here to build it while you're still gathering for a 3rd one also slows you down quite a bit, and I think that slowed down when you're about to hit castle, but once you've got 20 Gulam in the base and streaming across, I think it's going to take too long to get enough crossbows out to make a difference, because obviously you need enough of them to do damage. So in this case, the Gulam rush really worked, and managed to take out the Chinese before their Eco was able to boom off like crazy. But hopefully you've enjoyed this game. Hopefully you enjoyed the post-match review to see how things could have gone, and I'll see you next time for more fun. And again, if you've made it this far, make sure you check out Hermes and follow him on his channel and say hi when you get there.